We all know about automatic shotguns. Just mentioning one makes you think of power. They can tear everything apart and shatter anyone unlucky enough to be targeted by one of these. The features of these weapons made them take over all of pop culture for more than 40 years. However, despite their influence, automatic shotguns are notably absent nowadays. In civilian markets and armies around the world, none, and when I say none, I mean absolutely no army or police force in the world, uses automatic shotguns, even though the technology of these weapons offers dozens of advantages that their semi-automatic counterparts can only dream of. But if automatic shotguns are better than semi-automatic ones, why aren't they being used by all the armies and police forces in the world? Are automatic shotguns really better than semi-automatic ones? Well, in this video we'll talk about the history of automatic shotguns, their advantages over semi-automatics, and the reason for their sudden disappearance, so you'd better get comfortable and welcome to Guns Club. Shotguns are very niche weapons within the armies of the world. They have a very short range, so they have very specific roles. However, they are still very important weapons in the national arsenals of dozens of countries around the world, including the United States. That country has invested hundreds and even thousands of millions of dollars in the development of shotguns throughout the entire 20th century. During all this time, several development programs have been created. However, the standard Avenel and EME-4 shotgun, a semi-automatic shotgun, is not much different from a Winchester Model 1897. Mechanically speaking, of course, that tells us how little success these programs have had in trying to drastically improve the shotgun's design. To grasp the reasons for the failure of automatic shotguns, we must examine their origins in Vietnam. Think about it. The dense jungle was ideal for the defenders. Ambushes were a daily occurrence for the poor American soldiers. An automatic shotgun with pellets was the perfect tool to wipe out any enemy hiding in the bushes en masse. Similarly, the Navy SEALs began designing an automatic shotgun based on a classic model, marking the first attempt to create such a weapon. Remington called it the Remington 7188S. Ever since the shotgun itself was created, it was made. Creating an automatic version was impossible, as firing one in semi-automatic mode was already challenging, let alone a fully automatic one. And sure enough, the recoil of the 7188 was so brutal that it couldn't be fired in automatic mode in any way. The Naval Center for Special Weapons, under the direction of Major Carol Childrens, took over the project abandoned by the SEALs and started the first program for the creation of an automatic shotgun. It was called Special Operations Weapons, and from there came the SAO, or Multi-Purpose Individual Weapon System. It was a special weapon. It had 2 grips and was meant to be fired from the hip. The recoil could also be minimized. It looked like a homemade weapon, but it served its purpose. The government cut the funding for this program and it was canceled, since it was expected that the emerging M16 would meet all the needs of the soldiers in the jungle. But the prototype survived. In the 70s, the Department of Defense issued a request for a shotgun that could fire flechettes, flares, buckshot, and incendiary ammunition, with selective fire modes and magazines holding more than 10 rounds. It also had to have less recoil than the Remington 870. Likewise, the RINO program would emerge, or improved portable repeating artillery without rifling. Few companies submitted prototypes at first. This was considered an impossible need to satisfy. In the 80s, Heckler & Koch would present the Heckler & Koch KAUS, a fully automatic bullpup shotgun. It could fire tungsten pellets, flechettes, and had detachable magazines. It was truly a marvel of engineering. Other domestic companies entered this competition in the mid-80s, with designs similar to the M16 but adapted to work with shotgun ammunition. It was something similar to the concept of the Saiga 12. However, these were extremely experimental weapons and left much to be desired. The renowned Jackhammer would also compete in this event. However, unfortunately, it would arrive shortly after the Department of Defense decided to change the program to only design better shotgun cartridges. so the weapon was no longer requested. Curiously, the creator of the jackhammer would sell the patent and all the rights to his weapon for only $300,000. When the Chaos program was practically canceled, all these prototypes were simply abandoned. But during this time, the 1980s private designers would also independently try to design an automatic shotgun for the police market. Maxwell Atkinson in 1972 would design the Atkinson Assault Shotgun, or the Atkinson Assault 12. This patent would be sold to military police systems, which worked on the design for more than 20 years, until it became what we would know as the definitive Atkinson Assault 12 in 2005, the one we all know. EWO, for its part, in the 80s would take Atkinson's design and create the USAS-12, another enigmatic and satisfying automatic shotgun. These designs, based on Atkinson's weapons, managed to overcome the recoil problem by completely lacking it, so they were perfect shotguns in every way. They were fully automatic and had no recoil at all, even though they were better than conventional shotgun designs. All these automatic weapons were never able to enter the civilian markets. They were too powerful to do so and had no success at all in police or military markets. There are only a few examples left in the world, and they are highly coveted by collectors because of how rare they are. The Marines and the United States Army tested these shotguns several times throughout their history. However, they never approved them for standardization simply because no one wanted to acquire these weapons. Well, at first the main problem was that they had a huge recoil. It was so much that it was impossible to aim after the first round. That ruined the first automatic shotgun programs in the 60s and 70s. However, in the 80s and 90s, these problems were solved by cushioning the bolt under pressure so that it could never touch the end of the receiver. Those techniques were so refined that modern automatic shotguns had no recoil at all. But despite having solved one of the major general problems of shotguns, more problems were found. In these weapons, the 12-gauge ammunition is very large and heavy. A magazine for 40 intermediate rifle cartridges only had room for 10 12-gauge shotgun shells. That was kind of ridiculous for an automatic weapon. Besides, a soldier can carry more than 200 rounds of rifle ammunition, but in that same space, he could only carry at most 60 12-gauge shotgun shells. Soldiers with shotguns would simply run out of ammo too quickly. Also, after exhaustive shooting tests, it was determined that automatic fire in shotguns did not improve the advantages of shotguns on the battlefield. For example, at close range, a shotgun blast would simply annihilate the enemy, but 3 or 5 more are completely unnecessary. The police faced a similar situation. Officers aim to neutralize, not annihilate, their adversaries. If he finds himself in the position of having to open fire on a criminal, it is always expected that the criminal will survive. Simply put, automatic shotguns were too much power in one place. Semi-automatic shotguns offered a better balance between accuracy and firepower, and they far outperformed automatics in shooting tests. The automatic shotguns that did have some relative success were the USAS-12, which were indeed evaluated and used by some special forces around the world. However, since no new versions of this weapon ever came out, they simply stopped being used. We could also mention the Saiga-12, which is an automatic shotgun if it is modified to be used as such, but it is mostly a semi-automatic shotgun. It also had moderate success, being the most successful of all automatic shotguns. But the Verb 12, a shotgun based on the more modern Saiga produced by Smash, is a fully semi-automatic shotgun, which tells us that the automatic feature already is not so necessary anymore. Despite everything, these weapons still dominate popular culture. The case of the jackhammer is the craziest. Only 2 prototypes of this weapon were ever produced, and yet it has appeared in hundreds of movies and video games for decades. As a personal opinion, the United States Army couldn't be more wrong about these weapons. If their soldiers had had Atkinson Assault 12S in Vietnam, as we say in my country, things would have turned out very differently. Tell me, what do you think in the comments? If you like this video, I recommend this one about why bolt-action rifles are more accurate than semi-automatics. Thank you very much for watching this video, and goodbye.